Tonight, I will be refuting the claim that World War III will be declared in the next 5 years. Conventional history draws that World War I was immediately sparked by the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke of Austria-Hungary, and World War II came about with the unsuspecting German invasion of Poland. While these two facts were noted in the original speech by the advocate, they draw no connection towards the supporting claims that they will give rise to the onset of World War III. Utilizing the same articles and information provided in the advocate's speech, I will explore the non-feasibility of a Third World War, as well as the several secondary claims that tensions in Russia, China, and North Korea will inevitably lead to such. Many of my points will deflect that tension leads to world wars and reveal that tension does not even guarantee any degree of armed conflict. In the advocate's first claim, he cites that Russia is creating global hostility and tension due to their military actions. And while the levels of tension may be true, are Russia's enemies not doing the same? Did we not have an entire Cold War built on cultural, political, and military show and tell without the use of any armed conflicts? During the Cold War, plenty of weapons were produced and numerous military maneuvers were showcased without abrupting into any actual physical conflict for several decades. Russia's inability to reinstate such competitiveness and show is more likely to imply decades of tension than an actual World War. In addition, the advocate cited a Telegraph article that specifically highlights Russia's practicing of an invasion of the Nordics, including 2 members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and 2 neutral states. Yet the advocate fails to mention other pieces of information that were also cited in this article, in the same article. The Telegraph article states that NATO directly responded to Russia with their own Baltops 2015 drill, which included an exercise with 49 warships from 14 NATO countries. Not only does this confirm that tensions are merely for show, but the author himself also states towards the end of the article that Russia does not have the capacity nor the infrastructure to actually wage any type of attack on a Baltic state. So basically, there is not really a realistic purpose for attacking the Nordics in order to seal off Baltics. As for the tensions arising in Southeast Asia, China is not deploying bullying tactics to create tensions similar to those to Russia and NATO's. China, too, is using some military show, but rather to assert its role as a regional powerhouse rather than to simply instill fear in neighboring countries. Although China is using nitpicky land and air rights, so are neighboring countries. And nothing about the situation implies that all these countries will start World War III. Additionally, it was stated that in the advocate's speech that China and Russia signed a nuclear missile pact. However, when the original source was reviewed, it pointed to China and Ukraine signing a pact, not Russia. And when researched further, it was found that no pact exists between China and Russia, thereby eliminating this supporting claim. In terms of the United States' role in the midst of all these tensions, simply because the United States has numerous pact agreements does not guarantee that the U.S. will engage in a world war without justification. The terms of these agreements are the justification, and although the U.S. is legally bound to respond to any threats made against to any of its allies, the very existence of these alliances is to protect states against war and one-off attacks, rather than to start and prolong them. So when the advocate highlights that the U.S. has publicly sworn to protect Japan and the Philippines if harmed by China, he is only stating the obvious, and the likeliness of an attack from China is even less likely, considering the fact that the U.S. and China are the 2 largest economies in the world and have trillions of dollars in trading at stake. Lastly, North Korea will not provoke military conflict over tensions to the extent of a world war. My opponent's BBC article highlights North Korean expansion of its nuclear program. However, it also notes that the expansion is only on behalf of defending itself, not expanding some type of offense. North Korea is not the only state in possession of nuclear technology, and simply because a state possesses nuclear technology does not guarantee that they will use it to wage war. Overall, general tensions amongst countries is not enough to support the onset of a world war, especially within the next 5 years. Many of the sources used as evidence contradict the context it was given in, and furthermore, many of the military shows put on by all these countries are merely political displays and do not foreshadow another world war, which is far more serious.
Okay, it starts off pretty clearly identifying the claim. The secondary claims, I think, need to be laid out more effectively. As you go to the first point, I thought it was clearly labeled and signposted when you got to it, but it wasn't quite as clear as you got to the second, third, and fourth points in the argument. I could pick them out because I was listening to the issues that were being discussed, but remember, casual listeners are not always as careful about doing that. You kind of challenge the analogy to the Cold War and at the same time try to use the Cold War strategy as a way of responding to the tensions that are going on there. I like the claim that you're making that says tension doesn't necessarily result in armed conflict, that it's utilized for a variety of reasons. By the way, though, it seems to me that that would be what North Korea and China are doing in their situations, using tension as a way of gaining some kind of political advantage. So I think that there is a problem there, but that does it rise to the level of being warlike? I think you've got a good, reasonable challenge on that particular point. I thought you had a good example about NATO's response to the Russian scenario and practice that's going on there. And to me, the strongest part of the argument was the information right in the middle that says Russia doesn't really have the capacity to be able to wage war in these particular areas. So practicing it is mostly just a show of force or willpower, and that we don't have to worry about any of those kinds of things. I also like the point that comes up later on the U.S.'s role, which is that it's really preemptive in nature. Our goal is not to get involved in the wars, but by our mere presence and the threat of our being there, that is kind of a deterrent issue. I thought that you explained that concept pretty well. It would be nice if there was some evidence that showed that it worked. The North Korean argument I thought was a little bit underdeveloped. You make it sound like North Korea is just doing what everybody else is doing, and I don't remember how well the advocate developed their argument here, but I think there's a lot of reason to suspect that North Korea is not just building this for self-defense because they're afraid that South Korea or some other country is suddenly going to invade them. I think that might be a little bit problematic, and unfortunately that's the argument that you're finishing on, and I thought the other arguments that you presented were stronger. All right, thank you.